Hello there and welcome back to another brand new video on the Master Moldy channel. Now today we'll be taking a look at Bo's Lego Gauntlet and remodeling it into a minifigure scaled accurate Fang Fighter. Now the Fang Fighters most recently showed up in the last season of The Mandalorian and it was quite cool seeing them. We didn't see them anywhere near as much as we'd like. In fact, there wasn't even much of a space battle. We only saw the Fang Fighters flying around in the background. The bigger ships, which Bo calls the Gauntlets, get the more screen time and are really the focus as they are the troop transport. The Fang Fighters are really just personal assault craft, so it would have been nice to have seen more of them. However, nonetheless, today we'll be taking a look at my custom minifigure scaled mock. Now, before I begin, once again, we are still so close to 500 subscribers, so if you find yourself checking out a few more of these videos and you did click on the video in the first place, so perhaps you'll want to see Kenobi's Delta 7 mock, perhaps my Venator, which is a recent addition. I've even got my Speeders collection, and more recently I upgraded the 332nd Battle Pack and showed off all my Battle Pack alternate builds in that video, so check out all of them. And for the 5% of you that are subscribed, thank you so much. Hopefully we can hit 500 by the end of the year. So without further ado, let's take a closer look at today's mock. So what we have here today might not look like it's much, but definitely, as Han said, it's got it where it counts, and in fact is probably the most complicated and definitely got the weirdest techniques out of any mock I've built, and even out of any Lego set that I've made. You can see that from the top it does look like quite a basic Lego set. Of course, you've got the wings, which actually are almost as sturdy. In fact, I think they're even more sturdy than the original model. I remember Bo's Gauntlet always had these little end bits of the wings. Once you got past the cockpit, they'd always keep falling off. It was this blue wedge plate that just never would stay on, and in fact these are sturdy enough to be moving around the ship by the wings. But that said, I definitely wouldn't recommend it being swooshed around by the wings, and even this model as it is, I wouldn't really recommend being swooshed around at all. It's very much more of just that, a model, and less of a plaything or a toy. So if you're building this for a child, definitely stick to the end and check out the modification I have, which makes this build a lot sturdier. But that does require one extra piece. So this model does have many of the play features like the original. In fact, the biggest one is the fact that the cockpit does turn. Now, as you can see, it is a full 360 motion and all the pieces are hidden under this area. So there's actually not that much in getting it to spin that 360. But the biggest problem is trying to keep the ship in one piece as it is. Of course, you can see I've been constantly gripping this back bit here because you'll see in a second, this is where all the fragile and interesting techniques take place. But for the most part, you're probably going to be swooshing this from the back, and I'd recommend, if you are displaying it, perhaps getting some clear translucent bricks onto this cockpit here and perhaps stacking it up from there, and definitely supporting the wings in some form. You can definitely just support it from the cockpit and the ship holds up pretty well, but just for that extra peace of mind, if you can support at least the bottom wing, it's just something worth doing so the model doesn't fall apart. But of course, we've got a Mandalorian in here, and this is the Mando that came with Bo's Gauntlet. Currently, my Bo-Katan is on display with all the other minifigures, and my Gar Saxon minifigure actually no longer exists as Gar Saxon, as I've given it Kenobi's head and made it look like the Kenobi we get from the Clone Wars, when Kenobi goes there and dons that red Mando suit, and also the jetpack for portable high ground. But as you can see, I've repurposed some of the stickers. Now, the sticker for this back wedge plate and these two grey ones have just been left on the bricks. It's the stickers on the cockpit that I've actually changed to get the shape of the cockpit and I guess the style of it, because you do have the grey bars running up the side, a bit similar to the X-Wing cockpit, which I think they've actually used in Lego's official Fang Fighter versus TIE set. However, the only problem with that is it squares out the cockpit way too much. The cockpit is squared at the back, which is what this cockpit is lovely for, as it does have the squaredness at the back, and then comes into this more of a dome or sloped shape at the front, and does only have the 3 windows, and this cockpit's actually textured enough that it's got 5 of them. So all I've done is stuck a grey sticker over one to, I guess, represent the metal bit that holds up the cockpit and just make it look a bit better than a plain cockpit piece. After all, these stickers were just a bit lower on this bottom bit, so I pulled them off. If you don't know how to remove your stickers, I do go over a very nice technique in my video where I explain that I in fact remove most of my stickers. So that is up there on my channel if you do want to check it out. And now let's get into the complex techniques. So for the first one, we do actually have to flip the ship, as it involves this upside down piece on the back. Now, you may be wondering how I managed to do that, as the original set sure does have this piece inverted on the bottom of the ship. However, the original set is much bigger, and the techniques it uses to get this piece upside down simply just can't fit in this little gap, especially with all the mechanisms to hold that middle piece on so that we can rotate it. And when you are rotating it, if the wings do close in, it might make it a bit hard to get it back to looking straight. But all you have to do is pull the wings out slightly. There's enough give in the wings that you can have a slight gap between them and the body, and it just allows for a more smoother, swift movement of this spinning. But back to the back of it, well, this piece is quite simply just clipped on by these 2 studs down here, and the reason that that is possible is because I've just used 2 of these new sort of snot pieces with the 2 studs on the side, and they actually line up perfect with the bottom of the brick. So if you were to put 2 of these back to back, you can get another tile such as this round 2x2 to clip to both of them, and that really does support this whole bottom piece here, which is really cool that it's managed to not only work but also hold its own weight, as there really is nothing on the underside. Now, if you did want something a bit more secure than this, you can take this 2x2x2/3 sort of brick plate that you get in the set, and that is just enough height to bridge the same gap as this bracket brick or modify plate with the 2x1 plate on the back, as they both cover 2 plates thick. And then just take a inverted wedge plate. Now, I would have loved to use the same color, this light bluish gray, in this piece. However, that piece is exclusive to a 2011 Anakin's N1 Starfighter, which not only is a really rare piece, but the cheapest I could pick this up right now is £17, which is absolutely crazy for just one piece to go on a Starfighter that honestly you could probably buy most of the bricks for that price. But any color works, as it's the bottom of the model, and of course if you're going for accuracy, keep the light bluish grey. But if you want something that can be played with and is a lot more secure, that will hold up to, say, a younger fan of Lego playing with it, definitely just grab one of these wedge plates. They're always in a few of the different city sets, so you can head over to Bricklink, just search for an inverted wedge, and eventually these will show up. You can see which sets include it, and just find the latest set and see if you can pick it up, especially with the Black Friday sales. But that makes it so much more secure. You can even take this 2x2 round plate and add it onto the back, and from the top you don't notice the difference. It just means you can swoosh it around by the wings and have no worries of it ever popping off. But personally, for this video, I think I'm going to put the other inverted dish, or in fact just the wedge plate, back on, because it does look a bit more accurate. And of course this piece didn't come with Bo's gauntlet, so you probably even get a dark bluish grey one if you have one spare. But for now I'm going to re-equip this and show you just how easy it is to slot it on, as once it connects to them 2 pieces, it is good to go. Now, there is one more technique I've used, which is definitely the hardest technique I've ever had to do through the studio software that I originally built this with. But when playing around with the bricks, I noticed that there were some gaps in the middle here, and they were perfect for these 1x3 slopes to fill. Now, of course, I had no snot bricks. In fact, this section right underneath the studs doesn't even have any studs on it. So if I pop off this piece very, very carefully, you might be able to see that these slopes are just resting in thin air. Now, I have to be very careful as this whole front piece is connected by 2 studs under here. So once again, you want that security, get the inverted wedge and just whack that underneath. But you can see that these 1x3s just slot in nicely here, and in fact it's the studs that keep them from falling out. So once again, I'm going to put this back on top to close up the gap, and you can see it finishes off the model nicely. It even sticks out a bit, so you've got that rounded look down the side, and it's all thanks to these studs that they are not falling out. So this is definitely my most complex mock that I've built today, but it does look just so good, and it is to scale with a Fang Fighter. In fact, the length and the width is exactly how the Fang Fighter would appear in universe, and the windshield just sticks up nearly 1 plate too high. It's not quite a plate, but more or less it's 1 plate too tall. I could have lowered it, but it just squeezes in the Mando. I like the fact that the Mando's got a bit of headspace, as you don't need to lay him back this far. This is just as far as he lays back. But it allows you some place to perhaps not stick him down fully and still fit in there comfortably, because you don't want to be squeezing in a minifigure that only fits at a slight angle and you have to put that much effort in. You just want to whack the figure in there, whack it onto a mock on your display shelf, or perhaps swoosh it around for a few minutes, because after all, Lego isn't meant to sit collecting dust. So do have a bit of fun with this. Again, you whack this inverted tile on and you probably give it to a kid. I'm not sure how it will stand up. It'll definitely stand up a bit better than Bo's Gauntlet. But if that Lego set passes Lego's test, then I'm sure this would make a great playset. You can see there is a bit of detail on the wings. I've tried to use these corner slopes, which come in very handy when you're furnishing and just finishing off a model, as well as this 2x2 tile at the back, just to add some of that detail, as the Fang Fighter doesn't have as much detail as Bo's Gauntlet, and of course the wings aren't big enough to even try to replicate that detail. But I've definitely tried to include some blue, some different greys where I could, and really that's why this whole cockpit piece is a darker grey. It just gives the model a bit more of a pop than if it was all the same colour. So I think it looks really cool, not just from the top, but also from below. You can see right at the end, the wings are only 2 plates thick, and that has enabled me to put the blasters in using these sort of comlink pieces. But as we go down, I've just increased it to a brick thick, just to give it a bit more security on the underside and enabled it not to fall off. So if you do want to build this model, the instructions will be up on Rebrickable. If they're not by the time the video is up, I do apologise. I am trying to get them up as soon as I can, but they should be submitted sometime soon. So head over to my Rebrickable page, drop a follow if you're interested in any of the mocks. Most of them are Star Wars ships, so I'm sure you'll enjoy a few of them. And it's only £1, so it's not that much for instructions. Again, stay tuned for Black Friday. I'm going to have a quite big discount on my Rebrickable store. I hope you enjoyed the video. Drop a like, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more awesome Lego content. And may the bricks be with you always.